requesting that we retire to the back room to consider a possible settlement. In attendance at this meeting will be you five, Mr. Edwards, myself, and Brian Duffy, who is your special counsel on this matter, and a court reporter. We expect this session to last approximately 1 hour, and then we'll reconvene in open session to consider any possible settlement that the board may wish to bring forward. With that, we can go in the back.
And then we're going to take a break for 2 minutes. Back to Heather.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I would like the board to consider the proposed settlement in the matter of Voiles versus Wakulla County, as it is written and amended in your shade session.
So moved. Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
And this is a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the settlement as amended. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Reluctantly, I cast my vote aye.
Part of the record.
I think we all do.
It passes 5-0.
And I think the citizens need to know that this, this is the kind of decision we don't like to make, but we're ultimately trying to minimize damages to the taxpayer. So sometimes you just have to hold your nose and say yes.
On that note, we're going to have a brief recess until our meeting begins at 5.
Picture first.
And we're going to pose for a picture, but they're in recess officially. Thank you.
Why are we doing this?
For the website.
Lower your things.
We're going to call our meeting back to order. The invocation at tonight's meeting will be led by Pastor Mike Shockley from the Crockville United Methodist Church. Please stand.
I invite you to pray with me. Gracious God, upon your grace, your love, and your mercy, all of us utterly depend. In your great generosity, give to this body your wisdom, and keep foremost in their hearts and minds the impact of their decisions upon the poorest, the last, and the least. And this I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Start with approval of the agenda. Are there any changes that need to be made to tonight's agenda?
I'd like to pull tab 7 off the consent items.
Okay. Any other changes? All right.
I also wanted to pull tab 7.
Excellent. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Up first on our agenda this evening is a public hearing requesting board approval to conduct the public hearing and adopt the proposed ordinance amending sections 8-21Q of the Wakulla County Land Development Code relating to wind speed lines. Mr. Rod Revel, leading the item.
We need to make a motion first, Heather, to approve. I'd like to make a motion to approve to conduct the public hearing and adopt the proposed ordinance amending section 8-21Q of the Wakulla County Land Development Code establishing the county's wind speed lines.
Second.
And this, I know Rod is dying to get up here and talk to everybody, but this is something we have to do by the Florida Building Code.
Well, let him come up and
I think
let him explain to the public what the changes are.
Thank you, Commissioners. Effective March 15th, we went into the 2010 Florida Building Code, with which they came out with some new requirements for us, and that is a change in our wind speed lines for Wakulla County. And we now, instead of having just one wind speed line within the county, we now have 3 3 wind speed lines, and they're no longer as standalone wind zones. The wind zones are based on risk categories. You have risk category 1, with which we have a 110 and 120 mile an hour zone. We have a risk category 2 buildings, with which we have 120 and 130 mile an hour wind zone, and risk category 3 and 4 buildings, which we have 130 and 140. A brief synopsis of the risk category 1 stuff are things like sheds, open carports, agricultural buildings. That type of structure would be a risk category 1. Risk category 2 is light commercial and would include single family dwellings and that type of structure. The risk category 3 are more like hospitals, nursing homes, jails, essential facilities, emergency facilities, places like that. So we're requesting, I believe you have in there the text for the zones, and you also see the maps that were supplied by the Florida Building Commission, DCA, establishing the basis for the lines, and we were directed by ordinance to as closely follow those lines as possible. And we had to use landmarks, local landmarks, i.e. streets, rivers, something that any person can easily distinguish. So we've proposed before you the maps that you have in there, and I regret that those maps aren't in color. I do have maps that could, if you don't have color maps, we could, I have a thing in my pocket, we could put those up for your to view, but you also have your text of where they're at. But we're asking that based on these proposals right here, and if I need to read this ordinance, I will. If I don't, then I've basically explained to you what we've got, what we propose here, and we would ask that you so move so we can get this put into our code of laws. Thank you.
Thank you. Any citizens to be heard? Any further discussion from the board?
So basically, we primarily fall in the 110, 120.
110, 120 for risk category 1 buildings. 120, 130 for risk category 2 buildings.
And risk category 2, in addition to the residential that you mentioned, also includes most commercial.
Most everything we'll see. If we built a new jail, if we built a hospital, a new school, an emergency shelter, those would come into a 3 or a 4.
This won't affect really anyone with an existing home. This affects, and I happen to know because I do this for a living, it won't really change in either hurricane clips or straps as far as what I'm going to design. It will affect the windows, however, but I talking to Johnson's Lumber today about that, and Gulf Coast Lumber about it. I think the pressure ratings that exist on the windows will be sufficient to meet the 130 wind zone. That's what's really changed, is we've gone up to 130 mile an hour wind zone in a lot of areas. Now, on the other side of that, they took out the requirement to have impact glass, right, within a mile of the coast.
Well, yes, but I don't really like to speak to that too much on kind of, we don't know what the insurance implications are yet. And so there could be, there could be some repercussions from that, but we do no longer have a windborne debris region designated for Wakulla County.
Which, to translate that, means prior to today, if you built within 1 mile of the coast, you had to have impact windows. When this passes, the building department will no longer require you to have impact glass, but your insurance company, basically.
So could you sum up in a nutshell what the change is, that new houses, new businesses mainly, are going to have to build to 130 rather than 120, and we're talking about mostly located in western or southern, whatever?
Well, the lines as they're drawn, the lower wind zones affect a very small portion of the county. Most of our county now will be, and I'm speaking primarily to risk category 2, what we're going to see predominantly will mostly be, for the most part, will be in 130 mile an hour wind zone. It's not really going to change a lot in the design parameters that I've seen. Basically, most of the designs now for 120 and 130, they're pretty much about the same.
Any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Up next this evening is awards and presentations. We have an announcement of Domestic and Sexual Violence Awareness Month by Ms. Kathy Asbell with the Refuge House.
Kathy Asbell. I work for Refuge House. We work with domestic and sexual violence victims. And I'm very pleased to announce that because April is Sexual Violence Awareness Month, we are going to have an event at the Wakulla TCC office on April the 10th. That's a Tuesday at 12:30. Lunch will be provided. And we're going to have 2 speakers from Child Protection Team. And their theme for this month is going to be sexual abuse in children. So I would extend an invitation to all of you and everyone else here and everyone listening to please come. That's April 10th at 12:30. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the extent of our awards and presentations this evening. Next on our agenda is citizens to be heard, but we will do that at 6:30 p.m. Any citizen who wishes to talk and address any item on our agenda this evening, please fill out a card in advance. And if you'd like to speak to citizens to be heard, we'll get to that around 6:30, depending on the break in our agenda at that time. The consent agenda, we've pulled item 7. Given a motion to approve the other 6 items. So moved. Second. All in favor? Aye. That passes unanimously. Item 7. Louis Cerna.
Commissioners, this item is to schedule and advertise public hearings to consider text amendment to Section 5-11 of the Land Development Code pertaining to the thresholds for administrative approval of site plans. Under the current code, site plans that come to our office of 10,000 square feet or more of building and parking area require public hearings before the Planning Commission and the County Commissioners. This proposed amendment would increase that threshold to 20,000 square feet of building floor area. So as proposed, development of 20,000 square feet of floor area or less would go to the county's technical review committee and then would be approved by the Planning and Community Development Department. They would not be required to go through the public hearing process. The Technical Review Committee of the county, as you may know, is composed of representatives of the Building Department, Planning Department, Public Works, Health Department, Fire Department, Emergency Management, and the School Board. And this is basically a effort to save time and reduce uncertainty with the development review process. Site plans are different than standard rezonings or changes to your comprehensive plan or other changes to your code, in that they're truly administrative functions, and therefore we believe they should be reviewed and approved administratively. And if you decide to take this forward, they will come to public hearings on May 14th before the Planning Commission and June 4th back before you. Staff is recommending that you approve this option 1 to schedule and advertise public hearings on this item.
I'll make a motion to approve the schedule and advertise public hearings to consider text amendments to Section 511 of the Land Development Code pertaining to the threshold for administrative approval of site plans.
Second for discussion.
We have 1 citizen to be heard, Mr. Bob Danzy.
Hey, thank you for letting me speak on this. I'll just make it real short. I'm just support it. I think it's all the way around. It's a good thing. I just want to show you guys that I support it, and I think a lot of people will support this thing.
Thank you. Further discussion from the board? Commissioner Arts.
Well, I had a question for Randy. I was just curious why you pulled the item.
I just wanted a more thorough explanation for the public what the item was, since it's, to me, I think it's absolutely great. This, I've done lots of site plans in a prior life. I haven't done it in a long time, and I think as much as we can leave to staff and keep it out of politics, I think is a good idea. Now, I talked to David. I'd like to maybe work at the standards that Louis is going to be following, like, for example, on the site plan for the auto parts store, I asked for an easement along the road. I'd like to maybe codify that somehow, and also the cross parking lot things. I'd like to, give him firm direction that these are the things that we want. But as far as every site plan coming back to the board, I think maybe it is appropriate that a Walmart or a Winn-Dixie size structure, because it's going to affect a lot of people. But I really like this. I think I'm glad they brought this back, and I hope we see more things like this in the future.
probably am going to have to recuse myself on this because I basically build within that level.
He's not receiving direct benefit, though.
Well, it's something that I do.
But do you have any,
I do.
in the foreseeable future,
I
are you
do.
going to be putting in site
I
plans
do.
above?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Commissioner Arts?
I appreciate you bringing that to the attention. I think there's a lot of things about this that are really positive, and it can be a useful tool, I think, to expedite review and permitting. I often hear that is recommended as an incentive, and so one of the things I'm wondering is we want economic development. We also, the citizens have made it loud and clear that they really want to see most of that development occurring in the Crawfordville Town Plan area, as well as maybe our municipalities in Panacea. We as a board have said the Crawfordville Town Plan is a top priority. So when I see this, what comes to my mind is, okay, maybe let's, instead of doing this countywide, let's focus it so that we do this expedited review and permitting, at least initially, within the Crawfordville Town Plan area, within Panacea, within the waterfront. I would say South Choppy and St. Mark's, except this doesn't apply to them. And, that because we've said we don't want a lot of requirements, we want incentives, and here's an opportunity to create an incentive. So, and I've asked, and it would be possible to do that. The other thing, so I would like actually to amend the motion so that we start out as a first step, just using this as an incentive in those areas I just identified. The second thing is I have a little concern that the things you've talked about, codifying, that's been a priority for 3 years now, that we need to update our land development codes so we can do in Crawfordville what it is the citizens and the board says they want to see happen. So, the timing of this, it's kind of like we should quickly get that done and then implement this so it's in sync with that. So those are my two main suggestions, and I would like to offer those as amendments, or at least the first one as an amendment.
Well, Commissioner Merrick, do you take that as an amendment to your motion?
No offense, but I think if it's the right thing to do in the Crawfordville town, then it should be the right thing to do everywhere. My big thing I like with this is it's taking politics out of approving site plans. It doesn't matter if it's in Medart, Panacea, Wakulla Station, wherever it's at. As far as I'm concerned, it's the right thing to do. Now, I agree with you about incentives in Crawfordville. I've advocated for those for many, many years about trying to revitalize the downtown somehow, but I wouldn't like to use this mechanism. Basically, to me, it's not offering an incentive to build in Crawfordville. It's offering punishment to not build in it. That's the way I
But
look at it.
currently, this is what's in place, so it's not like we're changing anything for the rest of the county. We're just doing it streamlined for the areas where we really want businesses to think about locating. And once we get Crawfordville coming off the ground, then to me, then it makes sense. Okay, let's do it
I would
countywide.
agree to incentives at a future date in some other way, but not by only changing this in Crawfordville. Sorry. It's my opinion.
Okay.
Do you keep your motion?
No, I think I'm going to withdraw my second thing.
I'll second the motion.
Second. Now the citizen card came in. There's a new motion. Chuck Hess.
Chuck S. 112 Lake Ellen Circle. I'm glad I got here a little just in time. It seems to me that you have plans and you're trying to make have growth in your town centers, and you've gotten rid of impact fees and the ability to use impact fees to encourage and bring growth into the town centers where you want development. And now you're going to give carte blanche to almost any development in the county, and that just doesn't seem like it's a good planning strategy for what's going to go on in the county. If you wanted to make it for just town center, I could live with that, but that's, again, this is a lot of development will be coming and going on without any oversight, without anything of whether you want this in that area or any type of review, whether it's good for the people of the county. Not all development is good for the people of the county. There's some that is probably it's good for the individual that's doing it, but it's not good for the people in general. And that's why you're up there. That's what you're supposed to regulate, and you're throwing away your opportunity to regulate the growth. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Moore, you had a comment?
Basically, Ms. Arts, I pretty much disagree with you on that, because when you start restricting your program to just the in-town plan, not everybody in the county approved of that plan. It was developed by a small portion with input, whatever, but it was not something that went to a vote to the county and they said this is a great plan. And the fact that you think that most of your growth is going to occur within the town plan, within your town plan, you're almost restricted now as to the size of the properties available for growth. Your town plan is getting very tight as to where that you can build. So when you start restricting to just your town plan, I'll vote against that every time.
A couple more comments.
Commissioner Arts?
Yeah, again, I'm viewing it as, right now, this is what we've got in place. We've had it in place for a long time. Is there an opportunity to create an incentive here to accomplish what we said is one of our priorities? I think there is. I think it's a missed opportunity if we let it pass. Some other things, though, is this, I mean, I don't mind that these site plans don't come to the commission at the final stage, because there's nothing, at that point, it's too late for us really to do anything. All we can do is make a few requests and maybe, or suggestions, and maybe get some voluntary cooperation, like the AutoZone stormwater issue. It was all the engineering and permitting was done. There was, at that point, we couldn't do anything to change it. So, you know, I'm more concerned about opportunities for input earlier, which is what I have mentioned previously. And, you know, we do have these technical review committees, but all 5 of us can't sit in on those as a way to, earlier in the process, get an idea of what the concept is and to offer some suggestions if we have them. But and also, citizens now are going to be out of the process. So one thing, I had a really productive conversation with the county administrator in Louis about trying to look at some other approaches, like maybe putting this on the website and having copies, when it's at the TRC stage, having copies of the plans available at the desk, and have a public comment period that commissioners could individually, or neighbors, citizens, whoever, if they were looking at a plan, they could offer their suggestions, and it would still be early enough to do something. So, you know, if this is approved, I still hope that our staff will look at ways to make those kind of things happen. I also, I've been trying to get a little more information about how it's done other places, and I wish the item had included a little bit more of those things. But in some places that have the planning director do more of the administrative approvals, that or not have them come to the commissions, they actually have a little more formal TRC process, even votes or whatever at that level. So I would look for our staff to be bringing us suggestions of, okay, we can eliminate these kind of things, but what should we put in place that would be meaningful and helpful, you know, to make sure that if there are good suggestions, those have a chance to be incorporated.
I just want to be sure, no commissioner can be on the TRC, right? Hopefully that's correct. Okay.
Not on.
Well, not even go there and say, I want this or I want that.
I think they can
that
sit in
defeats
on
the whole
meetings.
purpose of taking the politics out of it.
We can sit in on meetings because I've asked to be notified in the past.
My thought is it's a technical review committee, not our personal opinions. And we haven't had a really controversial site plan come up yet, but I could see, who knows what may be presented come up in the future, and then it would get political. It just would, and it just takes it out of it. And again, just because we got elected, and don't take us the wrong way, doesn't make us smart. I think we need to leave it up to the staff to review. We set the ground rules. That's our job, is debate and litigate. We set the ground rules, they follow. And I know that's how you do it in Leon County. Every site plan, even every subdivision must go for the board. And that's why I really like this.
One of the things that we are doing is, as I've already talked to Louis about it, is based on conversations we had last week with Ms. Harsh as well, is the TRC, and we were needing to do this anyway, is to formalize the TRC to where there's votes as well as there's checklists and checkdowns, and to where it's not just a show up and have a cursory look at it. It's as other municipalities, it's an in-depth review of the plans to where there's a formality to that, to where we can go through these issues, as well as we're looking at website, like as soon as we get something in, notified, and we'll come up with that process. But this was born out of us looking at another agenda item's going to be coming up on stormwater, but this is born out of the idea of what else can we do to help out and streamline our processes. And remember, this is for folks that aren't asking for things to be done on the property that doesn't fall in with that zoning. This is for things that are based upon the existing zoning that will fit on that particular property.
And I think the comment thing could probably be
That's right.
useful. I think
Very much so.
Somebody make comments like the Winn-Dixie about the fence, to kind of match what's there. And those are all very good things. But it's just the problem from a business side, I guess. You don't really know if your auto parts store is going to get approved until you go to the Board of County Commissioners. For all you know, you may have upset somebody, and you don't know for sure. You could meet all the standards, everything can be done exactly right, and you fail because somebody's in a bad mood or somebody didn't show up to the meeting that night. That's what I'm trying to point out.
Right, except I don't think that's been happening. I don't see it as being all that political, because we're all aware that if they follow the requirements, they basically, they've done what they need to do to be approved. Now sometimes, and I'll speak for myself, I'll make a protest vote about a lack of willingness to maybe make some changes at the end that would be minor and helpful, but I always know that it's not like the whole board's going to turn it down. It's so I don't think it's been that political. I don't think I wasn't here then, so I don't know.
Pretty ugly things on that.
Well, that would still come back.
I understand, but something like that. You know what I'm saying? So I'm saying there is a potential for controversy, even if luckily there hasn't been.
And I'm not opposed to this. Let me make that very clear. I am not opposed to this. My two concerns is, one, we're putting the cart before the horse. We don't yet have our land development code updated to allow the kinds of things we want to see happen in Crawfordville. We've got barriers that we need to remove, and so I think, those should be coming through in the next 6 months, 3 months, whatever. So I personally would rather have that come through before this. So it's the timing that's an issue for me. And then the other thing is, I think this could be a really nice incentive, and I wish we would jump on it.
I think the incentive idea is nice. I like this idea overall, so I'm going to support it since it doesn't seem to be going in the incentive direction. But I do think as much as we can incentivize our plan in downtown Crawford, as Randy said, and I've said, Mike said in the past, I believe, I think that is good for our community. The question I had real quick, Louis, how much time do you think this will save in an application process between someone coming in and before they actually start to break ground?
Well, in the review process, it's going to eliminate 2 to 3 months.
Yeah, that's another exciting element of this is, that's 3 months faster that you'll see things coming, which is 3 months faster that people who, time is money. And I'm excited about that. And hopefully if people see this is similar to it's still a little bit more stringent than what they have in Tallahassee and Leon County. But I think it's good for Wakulla. Commissioner Moore, you indicated are you good? Is there any further discussion from the board? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Commissioner Moore, you recused yourself?
Yes.
So it passes 3-1 abstention. Yeah, I was getting there. Thank you. All right, excellent. We have no planning and zoning agenda items this evening. Up next on our agenda will be general business. Agenda item 18 has been pulled from the agenda, so up next is agenda item 9. Request board acceptance of the Occoquan Bay Trail OBBT status update, approval of resolution to pursue Phase 5 funding opportunity, and ratify the agreement entered into between the board and the U.S. Department of the Interior.
Kelsey Lewis is going to make a presentation.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Oh, by the way, if you haven't had a chance to look, Phase 1 looks really good. If you
There's
get
a
chance to
couple
go down.
pictures in there. Well, good afternoone. Like Mr. Edwards said, my name is Kelsey Lewis, and I'm with Kimley Horn and Associates. I'm one of the engineers working on the Occoquan Bay Bike Trail. Jessica, you can switch to please. Thank you. This is a map of the Occoquan Bay Bike Trail, which is about 11.63 miles long. It extends from Mashasands Park to the intersection of Surf Road and US 319 in Sopchoppy. Phase 1 at the bottom corner in green, it's kind of hard to see, extends from Mashasands Park to the Tide Creek Bridge. Phase 2, the next phase, extends from the Tide Creek Bridge through the refuge. And Phase 3 is the blue phase that is the exception where the refuge is. Phase 4 is about 4.8 miles through the St. Mark's Wildlife Refuge. And Phase 5 extends from the end of the refuge to the intersection of Surf Road and US 319 in Sopchoppy. This is we kicked off this project with the groundbreaking ceremony, which most of y'all were in attendance at. It occurred on June 24th, 2011. It was very well attended, and we all had a great time. The agenda item being requested is for the approval of the attached progress report, which gives an overview of the trail since conception through today, and I'm going to give y'all a status update of what's going on out there. For Phase 1, as Mr. Edwards said, this phase is substantially complete. You can see the photos of the trail as it stands now, and it looks awesome. For Phase 2, the survey has been completed, and we have submitted a formal request to the Florida Department of Transportation to transfer the excess funds from Phase 1 and Phase 4 to this phase. And we expect that we'll receive an answer from DOT on this about 2 months after Phase 1 is closed out, and Phase 1 should be closed out by the end of April. The survey for Phase 2 has been completed, like I said, and design is to begin in summer of 2012. For Phase 3, we've also requested excess funds to be shifted from Phase 1 and Phase 4 to complete the design for this phase. Currently, the design is at 90%. and we are currently in the permit process. We hope to submit the environmental permit to the Florida Department of Environmental Protection later on this week, and construction on Phase 3 will begin once Phase 4 is complete. For Phase 4, the design and permitting is complete, and this is the next phase to be under construction. It should begin in June of 2012, and the agenda item being requested tonight is for the ratification of the signed agreement for Phase 4. Time was of the essence, and this agreement had to be signed by the county and back to the U.S. Department of Interior no later than today, requesting the board to ratify. The U.S. Department of Interior signed and provided copies via email. The effective date is March 15th, 2012, and the county can now move forward with the construction phase, which includes developing and issuing the bid for construction. For Phase 5, funding has been identified and design is planned to begin July 2012. The next agenda item being requested is the adoption of the resolution making the Ocklawacknee Bay Bike Trail a priority for the county and allowing county staff to move forward with seeking funding from the CRTPA. Now, Phase 5 is the phase that extends at the end of the St. Mark's Wildlife Refuge to the intersection of Surf Road with US 319 and Sopchoppy. And we've met with the CRTPA on several occasions, and we're pleased to inform the board that we're able to locate the funds that could be used for this multi-use trail from the CRTPA. The CRTPA requires that these funds are to be specifically used for regional bike trails. In order to obtain these funds, the Ocklawacknee Bay Bike Trail must currently be the #1 priority project for the county, and this resolution must be passed in order to accept these funds. Phase 5 is currently in Kimley Horn's contract with the county and will start design as soon as the funds become available, which is July 1st of this year. And I would like to thank Mr. David Edwards, Mr. Tim Barden, and Ms. Cherie Keeler for their efforts and assistance in finding a funding source for this phase. It was definitely a team effort.
I move that we accept the OBBT status report, approve the resolution and seeking funding from CRIPTA, and the ratification of the agreement entered into between the board and the U.S. Department of the Interior to accept Phase 4 funding.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any citizens, Jessica? Any further discussion from the board?
Couple of things. This money for this trail could not be used for another project. So,
Correct.
For example, we're not taking away from 319 to do this bike trail.
Correct.
Just out of curiosity, why didn't you go Phase 1 to Phase 2 to Phase 3? Just out of curiosity, went from Phase 1 to Phase 4, then back on it.
It's different funding sources. Phase 2 or Phase 4 is through an agreement with the U.S. Department of Interior. Phase.
You don't need to explain all that.
Oh, okay.
Randy, it's
Funding source.
But
It's
different funding
government.
sources.
Government, that explains it.
All right, thank you. Hearing no
you.
further discussion, thank you for your time. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Item 10 this evening is request board approval of a resolution establishing and appointing members to the Wakulla 2020 Advisory Committee. Heather Encinosa is going to lead this item. Heather?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a item that you originally discussed back on March 5th, and at that time we agreed to amend the resolution to add some additional members and bring it back to you tonight. We have done so. This is the resolution. It would establish a 15-member Wakulla 2020 Advisory Committee and appoints members based upon the criteria that you all established. It will outline their duties and responsibilities. And in addition to outlining the duties and responsibilities, we have a slate of potential nominees names for you all. I believe each commissioner, you have a piece of paper that looks like this by your chair. Some of the names were already filled in from the last go-around, numbers 1 through 7. So what we've asked for you to consider tonight are the additional nominees to fill in the remainder of the 15 seats.
Yeah.
So for instance, the Wakulla Station, Michael Weltman. We only have one nominee, so can we just agree that that's the person we want? And the only ones we need to debate is there's two nominees for MedArt and two for the Crawfordville resident business owner. Is that right? We just need to decide on those two.
Everybody else fine with the rest of the list, I guess?
Right. Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, that's all. We just need to get
Okay.
MedArt and the Crawfordville.
We have two citizens, if you'd like to hear from them first, and then we'll have our discussion. First, Chuck Hess.
Well, last time this came up, I commented that we need to have a real diverse board that represents all parts of the community. When I looked at the website this afternoon, I don't know what those other appointments are and who they are. I hope you're getting more than just the business community represented in this project. I think you need to have lots of the community involved.
Thank you.
Would the board, sorry, would you like me to run
Yeah,
through the potential
please.
list since
Please.
nobody
Want to hear from the other
has?
citizen?
Sure.
Okay, read the list first.
The existing names in the resolution that came to you last time were Pat Jones for the Wakulla County School Board, Jared Miller for the Sheriff's Office, John Schuff from the Chamber, Kevin Vaughn from the EDC, Jackie Lahan from Sop Choppy, Zoe Mansfield from St. Mark's, Tim Jordan with the TDC. The potential nominees on the sheet that the citizens do not have is Michael Weltman from Wakulla Station, Paige Colleen, Panacea, Byron Price from Shell Point. The two potential nominees from MedArt are Dallas Gray or Andrea Carter. The two potential nominees from the Crawfordville resident or business owner are Skip Young and Jeffrey Ewalt. The potential BoCC appointee, Billy Mills, and Smith Creek was Linda Langston, just for everyone's information.
John Shaw?
I'll pass.
Okay. So, discussion on we'll first discuss MedArt. We have two people nominated, Dallas Gray and Andrew Carter. I'm not familiar with Dallas Gray.
Dallas has lived in MedArt all his life. He's a sheriff. You may tell me what he does at the. He's a chaplain with the sheriff's department, and he's been involved with various law enforcement duties pretty much for a very long time. He's a member of the church in MedArt. Just a nice person.
Someone like to address Andrew Carter?
Yes, because MedArt is my home, and I knew we didn't have a formal group such as the Panacea Waterfront community to designate someone. I made a point of talking with people in the MedArt community to get suggestions, and Andrea Carter's name came up several times. And I approached her and asked her if she was interested, and she brings some things that I think are important to the committee. First, she'll be the only woman on it, I think. Oh no, we've got Jackie and Zoe. Okay. Paige. Okay. All right. Sorry. But anyway, sorry. I didn't look carefully. Sorry. But she's very concerned about transportation issues as they pertain to young people, especially commuting students going to TCC, and so I think transportation is it's an issue she cares a lot about, and she is willing to serve. I think she would do a great job.
I don't know Andrew very well. I've seen her at the office meeting. I know Mike, her husband, and I don't have any problem with Andrew. I don't know the other person, so I can't comment one way or the other.
I know both of them. I've known Dallas all my life, and I've known Andrea most of my life. I both are well qualified. I don't have a problem with Andrea. I think she will represent Menard very well, and the county as a whole. I think she's a good lady.
Well, and her family, I know her husband owns property right there, and at one of the major intersections being discussed also. So I don't know if that's a conflict, Heather. I guess not. I like Dr. Carter. Any objections to moving forward with Dr. Carter?
I'm fine with that.
Okay. So we have
Thank Mr. Gregg for his willingness to serve.
Next up is Skip Young and Jeffrey Ewalt, as Crawford resident or business owner. Anyone like to speak? I'll speak. Does anyone want to speak to Skip Young?
I know Skip.
I've known, yes, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think he's doing a fine job. I don't know the other gentleman. I think I know him. I know Skip.
Jeff's on our, Jeff is on the, he was the person I nominated. He lives over in Songbird, so he's a resident. He does have a small consulting, but it's not a true business. It's not a commercial property. He has been on our code enforcement board for several years. Expressed an interest in being on this. He's got a commitment to the county. I think he could help reach out in that. I think, and I'm very pleased, we have a lot of business community involvement on here. My inclination for this position, for me at least, is I would rather see it be a resident versus a business owner in that category. I know that Jerry feels very strongly the other way.
May I ask a question? Don't we have 2 slots yet to fill? Don't we have 8 and 9? So couldn't we put both of these people on?
You have another BoCC appointee.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Skip is a good guy because he helped write he was on the committee who wrote the comprehensive plan, the original comprehensive plan for the county. So he's very familiar with, and he's a vested interest in the community. He has a couple of businesses, one of which is right in the heart of what we're calling our town, center of the town. I don't know Jeff. He's probably a good guy. I know Skip. I know he'd do a good job, and I've asked him, and he said he'd be willing to serve. And so I have no problem with either one of them.
And to be clear, I know Skip. I like Skip. I was just nominated the person I nominated. He thoughts over here.
I think both of them would do a good job. To some extent, since Crawfordville is Mike's district, I would kind of defer to his choice on that. But
I would prefer Skip, but that's only because I know him better than the other guy. That's the only reason. I don't know Jeff at all to speak to.
No problem with that. Like, is there any objection to Skip Young? Okay, and then Skip Young it shall be. Does that fill all of our appointments?
Yes.
On this panel.
All right, excellent. Any further discussion, or is there a motion? I guess we need a motion now.
The appointment says amended.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Excellent. Up next on our agenda, turn the page. Making nice progress this evening. It's item number 11, request board approval of an MOU between the YMCA and Wakulla County. County Administrator David Edwards will lead this item.
This agenda item seeks approval from the board to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the YMCA to establish a collaborative partnership moving forward, and outlines the expectations of both parties regarding development and eventual use of the community center in the future. This MOU is non-binding, but it provides for a mutual acknowledgement of each party's commitment to move forward towards completion of a facility and providing programming that will meet the needs of the community. Once the community center renovation and construction is completed, utilization of the $392,000 legislative appropriation from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, the county and the YMCA will enter into a formal contract that outlines the responsibilities of each party regarding the facilities and the services that will be provided. If you'd like, I could go over the couple of highlights of the MOU. They are one, to explore and evaluate, develop strategies to serve Wakulla County community more cost-effective and efficiently
by a strategic relationship between the two organizations. Number two is to explore and evaluate and develop strategies to maximize utilization of the 22-acre community center site. Number three is a four-stage model of usage and assistance to the county based on the availability of buildings and space. The parties acknowledge that the execution of stages 3 and 4 are contingent upon availability of funding, which those phases are the building B on your plan, which is where the current sheriff's annex is currently, as well as phase 4 is the actual grounds itself as far as any improvements such as pools, etc. Those will be contingent upon available funding. Parties also acknowledge that portions of the community center space will be available to other community groups. However, the YMCA shall maintain sufficient access controls to secure the kids zone. Number 4 is the YMCA and BoCC may consider utilizing Wakulla Parks and Recreation Facilities as a supplement to programs offered through the Wakulla County Community Center as it relates to meeting the desires of local residents. Number 5, establish a working evaluation committee comprised of duly appointed representatives of each party and whose goal is to complete a mutually agreed upon evaluation and decision process. And number 6, the parties have agreed to advance the timeline of the collaborative efforts to allow initial offerings of programs and services to begin January 2013 or soon thereafter as feasible in accordance with the mutual conditions of agreement, and shall work forward in good faith together.
Make a motion to authorize the execution of the memorandum of understanding with the YMCA.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, any citizens to be heard, Jessica? Any further discussion from the board?
Basically, I can go along with this so long as you don't use any county money to support this.
Okay.
I had some concern that there was no mention made in this about the Community Advisory Council on which they're going to participate. And this concern was raised by people that had served on our temporary committee. But I talked to our county attorneys, and since we have an ordinance coming to the board related to that, it can be addressed that way and doesn't need to be addressed through this.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you. Item 12 this evening is request board approval of the community center conceptual floor plan and approve the task order for Preble Rish to perform architectural and engineering design. Alan Wise of Preble Rish will be leading this item.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'd like to start by saying this: we are not requesting approval of the overall site master plan. We are requesting approval of the building conceptual plan that's in front of you, and moving forward with the design, permitting, bidding, and such of those improvements, as well as associated infrastructure, parking, water, sewer. There's going to be some minor site relocations of utilities, but you guys are aware of the legislative appropriation that the county's had for some time now to build a new community center. What we're proposing to do is utilize those funds to renovate the western existing building to match the floor plan that you see there, and then also add an open gymnasium on the north side of the two buildings in an effort to maximize floor space with the funding that we have. If you have any other questions besides that, I'm happy to try to answer them.
So this is, Alan, for everything from design, building, site, all the way through construction of the building.
We have $392,000.
All right, but this task order is for $60,800, right? And that's for what I just mentioned there: design, site, and the building.
Site improvements associated with this building work, which, like I said, is going to be some minor utilities, parking. There's also some stormwater improvements that we'll need to perform they've already been designed. They just need to be administered.
Paid for out of that grant.
Yes. It's not a grant, it's a legislative appropriation, but yes, sir.
I move to approve the community center conceptual floor plan and approve the Preble Ridge task order to perform architectural and engineering design.
Second. Any further discussion from the board?
Yes, first I would just like to thank Alan for he's put a lot of time into this. He's had to go back and forth with the why, and I just want to let you know your efforts are appreciated.
Well, you're welcome. I appreciate being a part of it.
And just a couple things, just to kind of throw out or to get sort of updates or requests on. I know we have Talclin is willing to help make sure that these renovations and the new building will be energy efficient. So have you and Dan talked about when he needs to look at some of these things?
We need to get a little bit further into having floor plans and ideas of how these things are going to tie together before we get to that point. But I'm familiar with Dan, and that we will be working with him
before the RFP goes out. Okay,
yeah,
good.
We don't want to have to change any design.
Great. Okay. And go ahead.
No.
Okay. And I know this drawing, you've gone through dozens of drafts, but when we looked at it with the temporary advisory committee, we had talked about some kind of a hallway or
corridor.
Walkway.
Yes.
So that people don't have to walk through the fitness classes to get to the cardio stuff.
Yes.
Okay. And also you're talking about parking, and I know Hugh felt pretty strongly about making sure we stayed away from the building. Are we going to be able to do that?
For the purposes of this in front of you, we're going to add gravel parking to the north and west of where the parking exists. The reason we're having to add parking is because we're adding floor area, not necessarily that we're anticipating that many more vehicles. But if you notice, the main entrance to the facility will now be on the north side of those buildings, not the south side. The south side will now be emergency exits. So we will be locating that unpaved gravel parking on the north and west side of the existing buildings.
But along the west side of the west building,
we're not planning on moving any asphalt as a part of this.
Perfect, thank you.
Open gymnasium. The picture looks like it has walls. Is it walls with no roof? Is that?
No, sir. It will be walled, roofed, insulated, and conditioned.
So open just means there's no structures in it.
Exactly.
No walls.
Exactly. And that structure will be fairly simple in order to get it into budget. Like I said, what we're trying to do is maximize covered floor area, and then with maybe with our own efforts or with other grants and things that might come along, we might be able to enhance upon those facilities.
I think Ms. Arts wanted some mimosa trees on that right-hand side.
Not today. All right, hearing no further discussion. We have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Passed unanimously. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Item 22 this evening is request board approval to submit a grant application to the Department of Environmental Protection Recreational Trails Program for a recreational multi-use path planned for the Wakulla County Community Center.
Excuse me. Alan, you're back up on the podium.
I was going to say Sharice talking about this.
Either you or Cherie.
We identify, actually with help from Ms. Arts, I believe, we've identified this grant opportunity for a recreational path at the community center. And the recreational path, the jogging path, whatever, might, through all of our meetings and all of our community input and our advisory meetings and workshops and things, that tends to be something that always comes up to the top. It's not a big ticket item, but it's something that we know the community will enjoy based on the use that the walking path at Azalea Park gets. This funding opportunity came up. We're about 90% through with the grant application. Ms. Keeler is helping out and has offered to help out even more. And at this time, we're requesting approval. The grant is due the end of March. The grant will pay for about a mile of an 8-foot wide path, asphalt, that will meander about the site, avoiding as many large trees as possible, providing connectivity to existing uses and potential future uses based on the conceptual site plan that we have now. But should things move forward, we'll certainly bring a site plan of where this path might end up before it moves any further.
I move to approve submittal of a grant application for the recreational trail program grant funding.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. No citizens to discuss the item. Is there further discussion from the board?
I don't like the grant match, to be brutally honest with you, but if we could pay for it out of maybe impact fees, because I know that the trail, Hudson Park, you don't go by there without seeing somebody walking around that trail. And I think that's probably, if not one of the most utilized parks we have. Is that walking trail?
We've identified roughly $15,000.
A little over 15,000.
A little over 15,000 impact fees that can be utilized.
I think it'll get well used.
All right, basically speaking, you're saying that we have that's money in the impact fees, so that's not any more tax money we're going to have to use or anything.
It's all according to how we structure the in-kind, and we do the project based upon the balance of the impact fees plus the in-kind, and where does that leave us at the end.
Commissioners, let me also offer that if you have a designated amount of match that you would prefer, I can back into a length of the project. Maybe we get 8/10 of a mile as opposed to a full mile.
Easy number, it's 0. But
that makes it a little bit more difficult for me, but
yeah.
Well, I mean, you know what we got. Jerry's point, I think, is that we don't want to be spending ad valorem.
Yes, sir. We totally understand that.
But I think in addition to the impact fees, surely there's going to be in-kind match from your design work or things that Cleve does, the tree survey maybe the volunteers did. I mean, I think
we can certainly build in-kind, and that gets us to a point, but then there's also just the cost of construction that I'm not sure the ability of Public Works to provide some of those services, but we can scrape for every penny that we can. And if there's a direction, if there's a number that the board requests that I meet right now, then I guess now is the time for the board to provide me that clarification, because we're not going to be able to meet again before the grant's due.
If you've got $15,000 in impact fees, surely we can cover $5,000 in kind. So I think we're all right.
Yeah.
Have Cleve and Brent just grub it up by hand and
Cleve,
you wouldn't get $5,000
he can do it. He can do it. He's already said
you did Azalea, didn't you?
All right. Excellent. Hearing no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Passed unanimously. Thank you.
Whoa.
Oh, sorry. All opposed?
I oppose.
I apologize. Passes 4-1. Apologize, Sherry.
Not a problem.
Item 13 has been tabled to the April 2nd meeting. Item 14 is request board approval of a resolution amending parks and recreation fees. Brian Roddenberry with Parks and Rec will be leading this item.
Oh, by the way, this is night number 2 of Brian wearing long pants.
The same ones too, so don't tell anybody. Good evening, Commissioners. This is a agenda request to ask for your approval on some fee restructuring throughout the park system, and the extension fees are included on this. There's a lot of information in here, but basically what we tried to do was make it across the board as far as fee calculation goes, so it's simple in budgeting purposes and in collecting purposes. No round numbers mostly. Some of the highlights is we did lower the fees on the pavilions, because many times people would call to do like a simple birthday party, and if the fee was $75, they pass on that and just kind of
homestead, kind of squat on it, and which it's always available for the public use. But this gave them peace of mind if it's a lower fee that they would spend $25 on to reserve it for peace of mind. I'm here for any questions if you have it.
Also, this does not, in this fee structure, the fees for the current park, the actual recreation fees such as football, youth football, and basketball and soccer, those were not messed with. That was this.
They have not changed at all. They have not changed at all.
Right.
They're included in this, but there was no change in those
A
fees.
motion to approve the resolution revising parks and recreation fee schedule.
Have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Any citizens? Any further discussion from the board? Commissioner Arns?
I have some questions, and I apologize that I didn't get to talk with you individually before the meeting. I want a clarification on what you just talked about with the pavilion versus the park. If you're renting the park, that includes the pavilion's not on top of it?
Correct. If you rent the park, you rent the entire park and all the facilities associated with it.
Okay, I know, like for Shell Point Park, there's going to be a fee either to use that pavilion or a larger event fee. But when you have something like Keepacola County Beautiful doing their coastal cleanup, are they going to now have to pay a fee for that?
If a county office helps co-sponsor that, such as the Sheriff's Department, since they work close to them, or even if the Board of County Commissioners wanted to co-sponsor that event, they would be eligible to be the fees waived, but that would come before. I'd propose that to the administrator, and he would waive it based on the criteria that's listed in the ordinance.
There's references made to kiosk ads. Do all the parks currently have a kiosk?
They do not. They do not.
So you're going to be adding kiosks that people can put advertising in?
If the money generated through this, the money generated through these parks helps go back into the parks, and that's one of the things I'd like to. One of the first steps is to buy those kiosks to post the rules and regulations of our parks. A lot of our parks don't have that simple, basic infrastructure that's required, and that's signage and stuff like that, and trying to generate some revenue, just a simple advertisement in the kiosk, still getting the message in the middle, but the ads you could take out for a business and run it 4 times a year if you choose to.
Okay, I'm sort of have mixed feelings about the ads, but you have. I like having informational kiosks. That I think is good, but there are also going to be signs that people can hang on fences for a fee.
Only right now at the recreation park.
And the equestrian center.
And the equestrian center, since there's kind of the big gates there. Personally, I would not recommend hanging all the signs across all the parks around here. It just starts to look a little cluttered and out of sort.
Yeah, and I don't know. I assume that's been run by with our sign ordinance and all of that's fine. I'm just asking.
It hasn't, but it's on baseball fields. Is the majority of that's where all the signage is, 4x4 on our athletic field fences.
Okay. Well, it just seemed like maybe we were putting them some other places. I don't know whether they're all in
not the
equestrian center.
Not the signage.
Not the signage. Not the signage.
Just in the baseball field or athletic field.
Or equestrian.
Or the equestrian arena, the big horse arena fence panels, another type of fencing.
Okay. Okay. Now, I want to focus mainly on the community center, but I'm wondering what else. Are there other things that needed to be listed here? For example, I'm not sure all what's under your purview, but things like the Maritime Museum, the Welcome Center, the old courthouse, whether use of any of those fit under your fee schedule or should fit under your fee schedule program.
They were not assigned to me. I was meeting with Les and Tim, and we were on the same. We had very similar rentals, and that's why me and Les kind of got together at the Ag Center to get something across the board. Because if my room was rented, then I could refer him to the extension office or vice versa.
Right. Okay. Well, there might be some discussion about whether we've got the full list of properties here. I don't know.
I believe we don't. If this is encompassing of every single facility, like you say, the old courthouse or whatnot, that is not included on this schedule.
Okay.
Just trying to knock them off as we get them.
Okay. And then focused on the community center, it was a little hard for me to tell. You have them listed as, I like giving the rooms names, like the Crawfordville room, the Wakulla room, the St. Mark's room, Panacea room, so forth.
Well, that was my idea then, if you like.
Yeah. That's
You're starting to sound like Cleve now.
But there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rooms, and I wasn't sure how those matched up with what we just looked at.
When these were proposed, it was based on a similar square footage area. They're not identical, but 400 square feet versus 380. That was in the neighborhood. We kind of gave it the same fee. The main thing was heating and air conditioning. If it was heating and air, that kind of put it in one category. And then if it had a kitchenette, that put it in a little bit different category, a little bit higher, maybe the $50 range versus the $25.
Okay. Well, one question I have is the YMCA going to have to be paying any of these? I'm just asking.
No, not once the facility's turned over. They're controlling the facility, no. But we've got to work all that out in their final contract. There may be some rooms that, yes, are collected to be.
Okay, and then also county departments, like the extension office or the health department, or if there are other county offices, departments, divisions who want to use part of that facility for community service, educational programming, or whatever, is it the same kind of deal as with Hudson Park, where since it's a county, you can get a waiver and not have to pay it, or?
Correct. If it's a program such as a coaches meeting for the recreation department, of course that's part of us doing business just because it's after 5 o'clock, and I'm sure Les is in the same situation. He might have the cattlemen people, that the 4-H group might meet in the evening, and he can, because that's under his purview, that would be one of his programs. But let's just say the future 4-Hers of America want to meet there, Les could send a proposal for waiving that fee, and that would be a legitimate, with the criteria-based, nonprofit, blah, blah, blah.
Okay, and then then nonprofit was my next question, because there's a lot of anxiety in the community about this is a community center, and we want to be able to use it for events and activities that will benefit the community. It's not for our personal financial gain, but people don't.
I think also, Ms. Arch, we're not trying to do this for. All we're doing is trying to establish these fees, so mainly that we capture the cost of operating that facility at that time. If we have to go in and cut the air conditioners on and lights, et cetera, then all we're doing is just trying to say that we need to capture those. If they're renting that facility, but as you're saying, a nonprofit, we'll look at that on a case-by-case basis as we move forward.
Yeah, because it's different than if somebody wants to rent it for a wedding, or somebody has a business where they're going to have classes that people pay to participate in, and they're in a better situation maybe to pay a rental fee than some of our community groups who are just trying to do good things for the community.
Sure.
So I'm going to vote to approve this, but I think we need, especially with regard to the community center, and I know it's early in the process, but we need to get a lot of that, I think, more spelled out.
And on the community center, the YMCA during negotiations might say we need all of it except one room, so all these rooms might be null and void because they have so many programs they want to offer to make it, not profitable, but promising for them to do so.
Okay.
Is there a particular room you'd like me to make sure they don't use?
No.
The med art room? I'll save the med art room.
No special favors.
Real quick, the only question, I mentioned this to David earlier today. I know we have a ramp at Lower Bridge, Gretchen Evans Bridge, and there may be a that's going to have a fee associated with it, boat rent.
Correct.
And there will be, you might want to reach out to the commercial boat renters, like right there, there's G&T Canoe Rentals, I know there's 2 or 3 others in the county, and try and figure out if there's a better pricing scale for them, just so it works. So something else to think about.
My question was going to be, Brian, at the boat ramps where there's obviously not an attendant, what Alan just mentioned, are we going to set up a
Honor system.
honor system?
Very similar to state parks and same thing St. Mark's has.
That's fine.
Excellent. Any further discussion from the board? We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Up next on our agenda this evening is request board approval to amend the stormwater review process and approve a resolution amending resolution number 2009-17 regarding fees for stormwater review. Louis Cerna, Planning and Community Development Director. Louis?
Yes, Commissioners, this is to amend the county stormwater review process and to amend the resolution regarding those reviews. Currently, applicants are required for site plans and subdivisions to submit plans for stormwater that have been prepared by a professional engineer. Those plans are reviewed by the county and the Northwest Florida Water Management District. Under the current process, there is a third-party review that takes place, and developers pay between $675 to $1,475, depending on the scale of their development. Staff is proposing that this third-party review be eliminated, given that these plans are prepared by licensed engineers, and given that the Water Management District, as of 2010, currently provides pretty extensive review of stormwater for water quality, and those requirements exceed the county's standards. So staff is recommending approval of this resolution, or actually it's a resolution for the fees and our processes.
Motion to approve to eliminate third-party stormwater reviews and approve the proposed resolution amending the fees for stormwater review.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We have 2 citizens who have submitted cards. Mr. Ralph Thomas.
Evening, Ralph Thomas, 637 Hunters Trace. I'd like to thank Mr. Edwards and Mr. Cerna for this. This is definitely a step in the right direction. This was a bad resolution when it was first adopted, and in my opinion has wasted taxpayers' money and has been of no benefit to anyone except for the third-party review. I led a project a couple years ago that this for my church, and this was directly affected, and we did have to pay for that. I'd just like to ask for one clarification. As far as the stormwater, we didn't have any problem. The third-party review passed the stormwater through, and there was no issue. But the transportation concurrency got hung up between the third party and my original engineer, and delayed our project for about 2 months, and they fought that back and forth. Is there any intention to, apply this same policy to the transportation? Because if not, we're defeating the purpose. We still have the exact same problem in front of us.
I was going to bring that up. I can talk about it.
But if that's definitely a step in the right direction, I recommend that you approve that, and maybe the transportation as well. Thank you.
Mr. Bob Danzy.
Hey, thank you for letting me speak again. I'll be short because Ralph just said pretty much what I wanted to say. I just wanted to make sure somebody said it in the traffic study. I've been a proponent of these for quite a while, and I'm always trying to find a place where the business person is a little bit more advantaged than he has now. I think this is one of them. So thank you for voting for this.
All right. Further discussion from the board?
I'd like to kind of mirror what was said. The traffic issue is not quite so simple where you have a permit issued for a certain specific standard, but I would like to come back, maybe ask staff to come back with something addressing the traffic concurrency, because it's kind of the same thing. You pay a lot of money to an engineer, not as much as you pay an attorney, but you pay them a lot of money, and then you got to turn around and pay again another engineer to review what that engineer did. So I think we should maybe set some sort of minimum standards. For example, on a county road, we could look at a turn lane analysis. These are very commonly done things. We don't need to look at a small project on a side road on a, but if it's on an arterial road or a major collector. But anyway, I'd like to, as not as part of the motion, but maybe as part of the motion, to ask staff to come back with something along the transportation lines also. I don't have to make it as part of the motion. I can just suggest that they do that.
Well, we've looked at it, and it's not an easy issue, and I would request that we don't mind looking at it, but if we could put this in a delay it some so that we can get some things flushed out that we've already got. We've got quite a few projects that we've got to get through, and we just can't handle everything at one time. But I agree, we would need to look at that, but we would just request that let us prioritize that and get to that and bring that back up at a later date.
I took it out as part of the motion.
Right.
Okay. Additional discussion from the board?
Before I forget it, I will have to recuse myself again because I have an interest in that.
You need another second.
Was there another second? Commissioner Stewart seconds. All right, so we have the motion second. Commissioner Arts, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I guess I had a question that I haven't gotten answered yet, and it's my understanding this went into place fairly recently. I don't know when exactly, but it was because there were problems, and before you get rid of something, I'd kind of like to better understand why it was put in place and why that's not going to be an issue in the future. But maybe I don't have an accurate understanding of why this was put in place.
What has changed, I guess I should say, is when the Water Management District took over stormwater permitting, DEP was only concerned before with pollution, okay? They weren't concerned with how much water you discharge. They were just concerned with treating the first half inch or whatever. The remaining part, which was in the county code, is called attenuation, where you have to, attenuate your amount of runoff. Since the Water Management District has taken over that stormwater permitting, they include attenuation in their permitting process. Not only treatment, but also attenuation. And their standard, I think, is higher than ours. So this is something that this permit from the Water Management District, which is very rigorous, from my understanding, I've never done one, thank God, but they get a lot of review on it, and it's, it doesn't need to be reviewed.
They're the permitting agency now.
They are permitting.
That's the reason why there was no sense in us getting into
This permitting process did not exist 2 or 3 years ago, in other words.
And we're removing the redundancy.
Right, but I think I would have appreciated maybe some of that in the agenda item or whatever. But anyway, the main issue for me with this, or I'm supportive of it. But I also know that as a county, we've said we want to encourage low-impact development so that stormwater is better managed on the site using some of the techniques that University of Florida has been trying to promote, and so I would like us as a future step is to look at ways, incentives or whatever, to encourage people to do low-impact designs. And when we get to that, Northwest Florida Water Management District we are going to probably need an additional review if we're doing low-impact designs, because it's my understanding that that's not something they're going to review.
Talk about using pervious pavement or something like that.
Yeah, and where instead of grading and doing the stormwater ponds, you have some of the natural gradation, and you have the rain gardens and the little, and you have cut so that on parking lots it goes into medians with plants and things like that.
Do review all that over there, because you have to meet their standard, which is attenuation. And if a person decides to do porous pavement, they will save themselves probably money on the long end. But if we want to do that as an incentive, that's fine.
And that's what I'll support this now, but I would like to create some incentives for people to manage stormwater in a little more progressive or environmentally friendly way.
Commissioner Moore?
Basically, the stormwater retention is probably put together with engineers. It's my opinion that your retention ponds are probably 4 times the size that they need to be. I've never seen one any more than just a little bit of water. The one in Walmart, when we have a heavy rain, it has a little bit of water. We'd have to have a 1,000-year flood in order to get that thing half full. If you go up to Capitol Circle where Woodville Highway goes down on that intersection, they've got acres of stormwater ponds, and it's just an opinion, but they're heavily overdeveloped.
Okay. Any further discussion from the board? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
I have to recluse myself again on this.
So, passes 4,
I
1
can't
abstention. We'll go on to the next item, tab 16. Agenda item 16, request board direction regarding process for modifying enterprise zone boundaries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is sort of your second go-around with this item. If you remember, a couple of meetings ago, we brought you an agenda item that outlined the process for modifying your existing enterprise zone boundaries in the event the board desires to do so. At that time, the board had some requests for some additional information. We have since done a little bit of research on some neighboring communities, and fortuitously as well, between the last time we brought this to you and now, the more recent information from the board or from the state about the level of benefits that have been provided in various enterprise zones became available, so we were able to update that as well. Real briefly, if you look beginning on page 2 of your agenda item, it outlines the various benefits that are available to properties within enterprise zones. If the board elects to modify its existing enterprise zone, which consists of about 20 square miles at present, it's 3 non-contiguous areas and one area contiguous to the St. Mark's Enterprise Zone. The areas include the community of Panacea along 98, a large segment of property on both sides of 319, beginning at Bloxham Cutoff and ending around Medart. It includes the area of Woodville Highway along Commerce Boulevard and the area where St. Mark's Potter is located. In the event you want to modify these areas, the process is to provide a 90 days notice, and you can only do it once every 3 years, but you are able to do that at this time because you've not done it recently. If you look beginning on page 6 of your item is the information that was requested about the neighboring communities, the size of their enterprise zones, and the level of the benefits that have been utilized within those zones. We've also included some maps of not only is the map for the overlay town plan, is that in there? Do we have that, Jessica? There we go. It wasn't available in time to get in your agenda packet, but because it was sort of a rush, but we do have the maps of showing the town overlay in your existing enterprise zone, and then attachments to your agenda item show the best maps we could get of the neighboring communities' enterprise zone, so you can see how they are configured as well with regard to their commercial areas. And in short, then, this item was merely intended to outline the process in the event the board wants to consider changing your existing enterprise zone boundaries, and to seek board direction on whether you want staff to continue to develop options to consider changing what you currently have adopted.
I'd like this personally to see, if we have areas around the flowers, for example, that are mostly residential, if we could convert that acreage to commercial, I would support that, but I don't think I would support making the enterprise zone smaller.
I too would, I can't vote on this issue either, but to restrict the enterprise zone that we have now is in trying to anticipate where somebody wants to build their business, and I don't think we can do that. I think that we should give every opportunity to businesses to establish here. And we have an enterprise zone already working, so I think we ought to stay with where we are.
Commissioner Arts?
Okay, first I guess I would like some agreement from the board about what enterprise zones we're talking about, because I know the last time this item came up, there were people in Panacea who were anxious that we were going to mess with Panacea's enterprise zone. And the county has 4, and the only one that I think previous boards have expressed some desire in refocusing is the one that runs along 319. So from my point of view, we're not talking about Panacea or the one at Opportunity Park or the one near St. Mark's. And I just wanted to kind of make sure everybody was clear, and if they're not, to speak up now. One question, I'm having trouble reading that, so maybe Louie and Heather could tell me. Right now we have enterprise zone within the Crawfordville town plan and core, but we also, am I correct to say we have parts of the downtown core that is not enterprise zone? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so I'm interested in adding enterprise zone there. I think let's look at that. I'm interested in looking at the options, and one of the options I see is expanding the enterprise zone in the Crawfordville town core, and with some discussion about even the town plan. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and we could always run it by the state. This is something that needs to be run through the state. When these enterprise zones were originally established, you would not be able to establish enterprise zones this large today. So my hunch from our discussions with the state is that they're not going to let us make them get bigger.
Okay.
We could try.
Could we
but
trade areas off like that?
Right.
That is probably a much better approach. You at least would have a fighting chance of that.
And that's what Louie has said, that there are places that are currently residential subdivisions that are realistically not going to become commercial, and so let's take those out of the enterprise zone and widen the enterprise zone boundaries in the Crawfordville town plan area. So I would like to, did I make the motion? No.
No, we haven't motioned yet.
I would like to make the motion then to direct staff, Louie, and the county attorney's office to develop options for us to consider. And just look at what the possibilities are.
Without taking so much of their time, it would be good for them to just bring to us a synopsis of their ideas, but without spending, we don't want to take up any more of their time than we have to. They got a full schedule. So I could possibly, Ms. Arts, there's a couple of places that I could possibly agree that probably doesn't need an enterprise zone because it's probably all residential. So I could possibly agree with you on something like that.
Write it down.
Okay. Is there a second for the motion? We have a second from Commissioner Stewart. We have several citizens who'd like to speak. Bob Danzy.
I thought you said you'd never agree with us.
Oh, we agree a lot. He just pretends we don't.
Twins in the pod.
Thank you for letting me speak again. My name's Bob Danzy. It sounds like y'all probably headed in the direction that what I was going to ask for is not to reduce it. From what Heather says, we couldn't get what we got now. Let's don't give that away. If you want to move some, then common sense is common sense, and that's all that I ask of the staff and the board is let's just do this in common sense. So thank you.
Thank you. Anna Peck?
Anna
Peck, 2481 Surf Road. As I understand it, then, the only issue before you is the process which you would use for expanding or diminishing enterprise zones. But I would ask you and tell you that I think a lot of people would be examining the criteria you use for expanding enterprise zones, and that criteria be something that is quantitative rather than just a gut feeling or gee whiz, this looks nice and good. Because I think one of the downsides of an enterprise zone can be not only where it is, but its ultimate purpose. And the question is it a ploy to increase the commercial value of some lands that would be profitable to the landowners, but detrimental to those who are around those enterprise zones? And location should be of paramount concern in your process in determining what might become an enterprise zone.
Thank you. Chuck Hess?
Chuck Hess, 112 Lake Ellen Circle. This has been on my pet peeve list for a long time. Basically, we've got an enterprise zone that goes from Bloxham Cutoff to Medart, and it doesn't make any sense. We've come up with a great plan for a town center. It's an idea to focus our development into the town center. You have a lot of enterprise zone that's going from Crawfordville down to Medart that probably could be eliminated and transfer that area up to the town center to expand the town center. It gives you an opportunity to have an incentive to develop the town center in Crawfordville. This would make really good sense, and this is an opportunity for you to do it. Thank you.
John Schaff.
I agree with the latest proposal that y'all just made. I was going to speak just broadening the Crawfordville area, but if you have some residential areas, that makes good sense to do that. One thing we have noticed that not a lot of people avail themselves of the program. I don't know how much the staff can do to, when clients come in to do a site plan or something, to encourage them to look into that and see if it's something that would help them. But might be something we want to look at also, but it's a good idea.
As part of the TRC.
Heather, when they review the enterprise zone, will it all have to be contiguous, connected? Like if they separated out Medart and took out the chunk between Medart and like Hardy Mill Road?
If you were going to create it today, it would be, but since you already have it in as 3 non-contiguous areas, you have more flexibility.
Okay. I realize we're only voting on the process right here, but when we make my position again and reiterate that if we can transfer it from one place to another, I certainly look at that, but not just making it smaller to get rid of areas, to get rid of acreage.
Depending on what you're transferring.
Right.
Well, if it's residential, or if it's areas that we really do want to encourage growth in, and there's some unused area somewhere else where we don't, we know realistically it's not going to grow anytime soon, but we'll reach that decision later.
Okay. I'll just ask the question. Do we have an enterprise zone on Surf Road going from 98 north? No. Okay, good enough.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner Rodriguez?
I would like to thank staff for providing some additional information about other counties. It was intriguing to see how nearly everybody was at 20, which I figured was probably the most you could ask for, and that's what everybody asked for. But even though all of these are kind of neighboring rural counties, they vary considerably in their size, from 516 square miles to 1,000 square miles. So 20 acres of enterprise zone in one county is more like 10 miles of enterprise zone in another county. That would have been helpful to have. And the other thing is that probably the public land acreage versus private land acreage would have been helpful, because that ranged between these counties between under 4,000 acres and over 400,000 acres. So again, the amount, how much is 19 square miles when you have, how much private land do you have? Anyway, I personally, the maps were most helpful, and I love Taylor County. I think they have their act together because they have really set up their enterprise zone from the get-go around Perry. And that, ideally, if we didn't already have this history in place, ideally that's what I would like us to be doing now, is let's put it around the Crawfordville Town Plan. And they have a few other selected locations. So, it's the issue of having it in places that I think some of us might consider a mistake now. It's tough. It's tough to try and make some of those, undo those mistakes. But again, it has incentive implications for the Crawfordville Town Plan.
Which more?
Taylor County might like a new resident. You love Taylor County? I'm just... Does the airport have a enterprise zone? We don't have one at the airport. Okay.
I would encourage, and I'm sure all of you will do this anyway, but I want to encourage everybody as they're coming up with these maps to reach out to staff and talk with them so that we have this conversations going on. Any further discussion from board members? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All abstain?
Aye.
Okay. So it's passes 4-1 with 1 abstention. At this time, we're going to do citizens to be heard. If you have not filled out a card already, we have a couple seconds. I guess it passes 4-0 with 1 abstention. Yeah. Okay. Our first citizen to be heard this evening will be John Shuff.
I just wanted to thank y'all for coming to a quick conclusion on selecting the members for the Wakulla 2020 committee. I'm real excited about getting our first meeting together, and I look forward to calling Dave tomorrow and setting up the earliest possible date and see if we can't start some weekly meetings and get it going. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Cortese.
Mary Cortese, 1357 Lower Bridge Road, or Dr. Martin Luther King Road, excuse me. I'd like to invite everyone, men and women, to the League of Women Voters of Wakulla's meeting this Thursday night, 7 o'clock at the library. Since this month is Women's History Month, we're going to be showing the movie Iron Jawed Angels. It's an HBO production that shows the struggle and fight of women to get the right to vote, the passage of the 19th Amendment, and the start of the League of Women Voters nationally. So it'll be Thursday night at the library, 7 o'clock. Please join us.
Thank you. Dana Peck.
Dana Peck, 2481 Surf Road. I'm here tonight because I saw or was alerted to the items of the enterprise zone and the wetlands variances on the agenda, and it occurred to me that these two are going hand in hand, because what it seems to be afoot is that there are some people who stand to gain personally from pleasure, either pleasurable gain or profitable gain, from filling in the wetlands on a little grassy strip, which is the airstrip down in Panacea. This strip leads right into the backyards or front yards, I don't know which you want to call it, of the homes in that area. And this area, and I'm sure you're well aware of the area, is in the wetlands. It's in the heart of nature. Putting an enterprise zone there would be like taking a stake and striking it in the heart of nature. The area that was this grassy little strip in which everyone lived in harmony with has now become raped land, where the foxes are gone, the wildlife is gone because someone, it appears, has not followed the law carefully and has just cut trees down to get this land ready to sell for an airport extension, which ultimately would cost more than $3 million. I don't see the purpose in all of this, but I came here tonight to tell you that filling in the wetlands, first of all, is beyond comprehension. To fill them in, to put up fuel farms, so when the storms come, the fuel can trickle down into a Gluttony Bay and kill the little fishies that everybody comes to see, seems counterproductive to me. If you contemplate these ideas of filling in this airstrip, this grassy strip, which is suitable now and lives in harmony with the families around there for single engines and some twin-engine planes, if you fill in this land, you will diminish the sea life and the wildlife in that area, which is why people want to be there anyway. You will degrade the harmony and the quality of the area. You will decrease the property values along Surf Road. And if you like that idea, I think this is the commission that jacked up taxes on everything that could move. We'll get ready to jack up some more, because if the property values decrease, so does the county revenue. And for what compelling reason? Somebody might tell you jobs. I can't imagine the bountiful jobs that would come in, that it would offset the destruction of the lives of the people there and the revenue that you should be getting because of the property values that are there now. And if you don't believe this property value argument, just go along Surf Road and ask how many people with for sale signs up in front of their houses want planes, jacked up, increased number of flights coming in and over their houses when they're trying to sell their homes. Not many, because the more planes that come there, the greater the risk to human life. And we know that's a flat fact because we've already had a crash there that killed 2 people. The end.
Thank you. That concludes citizens to be heard this evening. Turning back to general business, agenda item 18, request board approval of the amended personnel policy. Debbie?
This agenda item requests board approval of the proposed revision to the Wakulla County Personnel Policy for the board and its employees. This policy was updated, just so you know, in conjunction with Harry Childs with Neighbors Giblin, who worked extensively on this revision and this update. The previous policy had 2 addendums that were issued from its original date of adoption. Those 2 amendments have been incorporated into this policy to bring that into line. And then also, I'm just going to hit the highlights of the changes that we've made. We updated the definitions section. We increased, well, I shouldn't say increased, but we enhanced the equal employment opportunity section. We added a social media policy regarding Facebook and Twitter and employees' interactions with those. In this day and age, that's pretty important. We also have included an updated section regarding retirement and the recent legislative changes that have taken place. We've also included the newly implemented timesheets, electronic timesheets, that we've just 100% got all employees on. We're very proud of that, and hopefully soon we'll be going paperless with that system. We've also included and will incorporate the newly approved telephone communication policy that the board approved recently, and that will be an attachment to this policy. And we have updated the grievance and dismissal policy and procedures. We've included some new forms for employees. We've updated some old forms that were definitely out of date. And we have also updated the classification and pay plan. Just so you know, this policy has been run by the clerk's office. Staff there has looked at it. We've also run it by all department managers, given them an opportunity to review it, bring any concerns and questions to us. We've that's really pretty much about it. Once approved by the board, copies will be distributed to all employees. We will go over it with them. They will need to sign an acknowledgement that they've received it, that they understand it, that they are an at-will employee, and they will sign that statement and give that back to us. That'll be included in their personnel policy.
Motion to approve the revised Wakulla County Personnel Policy and Procedures Manual to be effective immediately.
A motion and a second. Are there any citizens? Any further discussion from the board?
Just a couple things. Number one, the cost of this has already been incurred, correct? This was directed. This has been worked on for some time.
Other than the only thing that's left, property costs.
Okay. And I hope this is money well spent to avoid some lawsuits, possibly, if it clarifies dismissal or whatever procedures. If it does that, it's money well spent in my mind.
All right. Hearing no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Debbie. Moving on to Commissioner agenda items. First up this evening is Commissioner Arts, who's going to talk to us tonight about requesting approval to direct the county attorney to improve the county noise ordinance.
Beg your pardon?
I said Alan should host the Oscars one.
Yeah. I have had, over the past 3 years, but also in very recent months, have had citizens contact me frustrated about our current noise ordinance, in part because it's limited only to 9 hours out of every day. But there are other issues. It's a pretty subjective complaint-based, difficult to enforce ordinance, and there are a lot of models out there of how other jurisdictions have quantified noise and are able to measure it using sound loudness meters, sound level meters or loudness meters. So at the request of citizens and after talking to our county attorney and conversations with the sheriff's office, I am asking that we direct the county attorney to work with the sheriff's office and propose improvements to the county's noise ordinance. Now, even though it's a very small ordinance, and I don't anticipate that it's going to take a tremendous amount of work, we may require some additional compensation. We also, the sheriff's office may have to acquire some additional meters. They're going to need to further investigate what would be the best meters and how many do they need. So I think there may be some minimal costs that are associated with this, but it's definitely an area in which we can improve. So I move that I did already make the motion.
Is there a second? Second. We have several citizens who have filed cards to speak this evening. First up, Jonathan Clark.
My primary concern would be I know it's not a question and answer series, but what are the complaints? What are the nature of the complaints from citizens? And if you measure sound level, I mean, you're talking decimal level over a certain distance, and there's going to be some complications that will arise, vehicles, homes, whatever it may be. So I'm just generally urging some caution on that matter, as you probably will choose to proceed to investigate the situation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bree Ann Luber. Sorry.
Thank you so much, Commissioners. I highly recommend that the board revisit the Wakulla County ordinance on that noise. I understand the law right now is 7 p.m. to 5 or 6 a.m. So if you life in McCullough County, continue to live with a high quality of life and not have to, I can't say the word, put up with that kind of boom box. And believe me, if you live next door to that, each one of you will be running to your attorney right now saying, please make them stop. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Bob Danzy?
Hello, hello. My name is Bob Danzy, and thank you for letting me speak again. Guess I'm a little concerned that this may go in a direction of making our county a homeowners association. I don't want to be regulated with what I can do during the day. I mean, if you're building a house next door, or somebody has to use a jackhammer because of have to chop their driveway up for some reason for construction, you know, I mean, it has to be left reasonable to where your neighbor can't call and say you have to do construction quietly. And so that's my concern, and that may be a little bit of an overkill, but I don't want it to get there. I don't know if what we have now works. I only got to read about this afternoon. But those are my concerns, that we don't make this just a place that, like I said, I don't want a homeowner association. I can tell you I don't live in one, and I probably won't if I can have. My kids may put me in one when I get old, but that's going to be about it. I don't want other people creating rules for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Fred Matuszak.
I would like to address, my name is Fred Matuszak. I live at 56 Moody Lane, and I would like to address what this fella just said here. I agree with him. If it's productive, it's not a problem. You know, jackhammering up cement that's not a problem. But when you call the sheriff and they're waking up with a boombox at 1 a.m. in the morning, and he comes out there and engages the neighbor, the sheriff does, and then I have to put up with all the next day base plowing through my house for the next, well, it's been about 5 months now. So I would, you know, ask any one of you people, come live at my house for about 5 months and put up with that. And that young man's, I mean, if you got sawdust for brains, put earphones on, and then it will elect between the two, you know, headphones. I don't have a problem with people, you know, having parties up the street. You know, once, you know, they do, my neighbors 5 acres away have parties every now and again, and it's not a problem. You know, late at night, loud music. But that only happens every now and again when their children have parties and stuff. But to literally harass me after I make a complaint and they're waking me up at 1 and doing it on a daily basis after I have the sheriff come out there and doing it, you know, as harassment. You know, something has to be done on that part of it. You know, the nighttime stuff, when we're not talking about jackhammers, this production, I'm all for it. But, you know, that's not productive. What's productive about boom, boom, pow, pow, boom, boom, pow, pow? That's all I hear. I got to turn my TV all the way up, and I still hear that under my TV, and I got 3 acres, and I'm in the middle of that, and he's got 5 acres, and he's putting out 20 acres of base. I mean, that's a problem. I mean, you've been at a red light before. Somebody pulls up, splitting your head open. Can't wait till he pulls off. That's what I live with the harassment of that every day. So I don't have a problem with people listening to their stuff. Put earphones in, but don't put it through my house. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
I have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion from the board?
I got a few things.
Commissioner Stewart and Commissioner Marion.
Like Lynn, I've had several folks call me that's had issues, and I'll share one with you that goes with what these folks are talking about. We need some teeth to this ordinance to help the sheriff's department be able to enforce it. One of the folks down on Mashie Sands on Surf Road have folks who live next to them who have no power, no electricity hooked up, and they run a generator, and they run it right up until 10 o'clock at night when the noise ordinance goes into effect, and then they turn it off. These folks are trying to live a normal life like this gentleman who was just up here, and you know, the sheriff goes, he can't say anything other than, you know, at 10 o'clock if he doesn't turn it off, he can cite him. So we got to do something. At the same time, like Danzy just said, you know, there's got to be some logic to it that we include in that ordinance, that if it's construction noise, that's acceptable. I mean, we've got to use some common sense in it, but we have got to put some teeth to it so that that law enforcement can go and cite these people and, if necessary, arrest them, because that's just it's common sense, and people will abuse it. I mean, just like this gentleman said here, he's got people, retaliating because he called the law, and that's not the way it's supposed to work. So we need to do better by it. But I want us to be careful how we do it, so that we don't take people's rights away from them at the same time. So anyway, I'm sure there are somewhere out there we don't have to recreate the wheel. I'm sure we can go to other communities and find out what they do and make it better.
Mr. Mayor, I just kind of along the lines of what Mike was saying, I just want us to be sure to tread real careful. I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You know, there's several things to consider. There's construction, there's commercial activities. You know, we have people don't live next door to a commercial establishment. We don't want to set up a mechanism where they can complain about their air conditioner running or whatever. You know, so I'm not necessarily opposed to this, but I want to be sure we don't create more problems than we're solving. We've got agricultural activities that may possibly be going on, and we've seen neighbors fight with each other. You may get a complaint, well, their horse or their donkey gets out there and makes noise all day, so you need to go arrest them, or you need to do this. And I know that's not the case he's talking about, and I'm not trying to belittle it, but we need to think about these things. You know, maybe some with teenagers, you know, who knows, kids, parents may be gone, and have a system where they issue a warning before going straight to, you know, getting them in trouble, and there needs to be some definitive number at this point, you know, at your house or whatever, the decibel level is this, so we're going to go give them a warning, and if we have to go back again, then we'll start enforcement. My main point is I want to tread real lightly, very. We don't want to step on people's toes. I know there are some issues, but some people want to work on their car at their house in Wakulla Gardens or whatever, and you know, we want to allow people to still be able to do that.
I agree.
Thank you. Commissioner Moore, you want to say something?
I think since we're not the ones who are going to be enforcing this, and our good sheriff is sitting over here on the wall, would you like to say a few items about this? You're the person who's going to have to go out and write your ticket.
Yes, it's a very difficult item to undertake, but now we have actually bought one meter, but we don't have the calibration, and the meter's 250 and the calibration unit's 400. And so and I've actually been talking with the band Eli. I think they have a real big sound system as far as the commercial part, and trying to test it and see what the decibel levels may be. But I think we're going the right way to try to get some numbers, get some where to go into it, and then discuss that, because it is a very complicated issue. And but we do have the equipment. We're trying to get the equipment, but we don't. We have actually ordered the calibration unit now, which is 400, and trying to train people how to use it. That in itself, you've got one unit, it will never be where you need it, and so you got to have multiple units, and so it is a little costly, but it needs to be done. But it needs to be set in stone. So if the officer gets there, if it's whatever it is, it's not his opinion, it's the ordinance's opinion, and because what's allowed to me may not be allowed to the next officer, and so it's just very clear for everybody concerned.
I would like to say that I'd like to ask the board or the county that before we enact anything, that we run it through your office first to get your input on it.
Yeah, we're working with the attorney now. We're all working together on it. We just got to get the equipment so we can test it.
Any further discussion? Thank you, Sheriff. All right, hearing no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed unanimously. Thank you. Up next, agenda item 20A, Commissioner Merritt requests board approval to direct staff to amend the Wakulla County Wetland Ordinance to allow variances in the entire wetland buffer, and approval to advertise a public hearing to consider adopting the ordinance.
I'm going to briefly trying to accomplish 4 things with this, and if the support's not here, I'm going to drop it. Y'all may not want to take this on this time, but I think it's important to me. First of all, our current wetlands ordinance does not give citizens a mechanism to apply for a variance within the 35-foot portion of the 75-foot setback. As you're aware, there's two portions to that 75-foot setback. There's the 40-foot, and then there's the 35-foot, which in the comp plan is called do not disturb. There is a methodology in the ordinance to allow a citizen to apply for a variance by coming all the way to the board to disturb that 40 feet, but there is no mechanism to allow them to disturb that 35 feet. Now, I don't think the situation has come up yet, but it is possible someone could have a piece of property that they could build a house on in the upland area and still be 5 or 10 feet away from the wetlands, but there's no way they could build on it. And to me, that's a taking of personal property. And they would meet all state rules except Wakulla County's rules. The second thing, that was number 1. Number 2, I'd like to propose that the variances within the first 40-foot buffer be handled by staff. Somebody doesn't have to come to the Board of County Commissioners to want to get 10 feet inside of that 40-foot buffer zone, which would still leave a 30-foot, 30 plus 35, so leave 65 feet buffer from the wetland. I know I'm making this confusing, but so the second part is to allow staff to be able to approve variances in the first 40 foot. Now, if you want to get closer than 35 feet to that wetland, you have to come before the board. Third thing, and in the ordinance it mentions several times when you apply for a variance, you need to bring your plan and your mitigation plan. And in my proposal, I struck all those mitigation things out because they're not actually wanting to disturb the wetlands. My opinion is, how do you mitigate? You haven't damaged the wetland. You have got into the buffer zone, but how do you mitigate disturbing the buffer zone? I certainly understand, and it's common practice to mitigate wetland destruction or whatever, but I don't agree with having to mitigate for disturbing the buffer, especially, if that's what's required. And the fourth thing, which isn't specifically delineated in my text, is clarify for the staff his parameters on how he can grant these variances within the 40-foot buffer zone. And I'll tell you my personal opinion. My personal opinion is if you have a piece of property and you want to build X on it, be it commercial or residential, and this is what you want. And in order to do that, you have to get into that 40-foot buffer. Well, you could say, well, you can only get in there if there is no reasonable alternative. Of course, the reasonable alternative is build a smaller house. But you may not want to build a smaller house. Or you may, and the example I'm going to use is the Plaza Court. You remember up there across from Walmart. They wanted to get a variance to get into that 40-foot buffer zone. They were denied, so the building's now shaped like an L just to get around the setback. They didn't want to destroy the wetland. They just wanted to get inside that 40-foot setback. That costs thousands of square feet of commercial space, which, I'm not doing this. There's no project being proposed. That's water under the bridge over there. I'm just using that as an example. So, and then if they want to get inside the 35-foot buffer zone, there'd have to be some real compelling reason that your property is absolutely useless if you don't get inside that 35-foot buffer zone. So, in other words, if you have a wetland on your property, you go to Louis and you say, I want to get inside the buffer zone. He's going to first say, can you put your house, that house, can you move it over? Can you put it somewhere else? If the answer is yes, you can do that, then he would deny the variance. He'd say, no, you've got to move it outside the buffer. But if that's the only way you can build that house that you want is to get inside that 40-foot buffer, then you could approve it. Now, that's my thoughts on that. And those were the 4 items I'm asking direct staff. So I'll go ahead and make a motion with direct staff to amend the wetlands ordinance. Now, let me back up 1 second. Heather told me, bless you, tell me this, the comp plan has to be amended to even do these things. Is that correct?
Some of them, yes. To allow development within the 35-foot inner buffer, you would need to amend your comp plan, and you would also, currently, variances are only allowed if there is going to be a quote-unquote taking, so you'd have to provide some additional discretion there as well.
The comp plan, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it is, the legal interpretation of it is that you have to take it at its most stringent possible interpretation. My interpretation of it is, and I'll just read you the sentence that tells me that, is Wakulla County Board of County Commissioners may establish a variance procedure that grants reasonable use of residential and non-residential properties in relation to the buffer. Okay. Doesn't say only in relation to this buffer, I know.
If you read the other two sentences above that, it talks about it.
Again, I understand. I'm just saying, if that taken by itself, I know it's taken out of context, but, so, I'd like to make a motion, we direct staff to work on the comp plan amendment to accomplish this, and revision of the wetlands ordinance, and if the support's not there, I'll drop it, and I won't bring it up again until a year or two from now, but I don't want to cause anybody grief, but I just think this is, that's it.
Mr. Chairman. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Not hearing a second. The motion fails.
Well, what I want to add now that just to this, Randy, I think there's some elements of what you're trying to do is worthy of taking on, because I agree with part of it. But one of the problems I have is that I haven't had time to study this at all. It came late. If I'd had a week so I could work with staff to try to understand it better and sit down with the attorney, so that I would like to see you bring it back again in a revised version after we've had time to look at it. I mean, honestly, I haven't had time.
Let's talk about it under discussion items and to see. Obviously, I didn't get a second, so everybody thinks it stinks. But
No.
maybe there's.
No, we don't think it stinks.
Okay, well, maybe we'll talk about it under discussion, and I've seen people bring the same item back over and over again. I'm not going to do that. If the board doesn't want to proceed down that path to allow people to get a variance, and that's fine.
And I agree wholeheartedly that we need a avenue to get a variance. If this is where we want to talk about it, we can talk about it later. What do you want to do, Mr. Chairman?
We can talk, but we're almost done. Why don't we just wait till discussion items? Okay. Okay?
That'll be fine.
Okay. The last commissioner item this evening is from me. It's an agenda item that I brought forward requesting board approval to schedule a Children's Services Council workshop. I put a lot of information from the Children's Services Council website in here. I hope you'll have the chance to review what it is. I'm learning more about these. I'd like to have a workshop where we can all learn about them at the same time. I'd also like to invite the Children's Coalition and the Chamber to attend, to listen, not to present, just to also hear. I'm going to extend an invitation to them in the same way. And I would appreciate a motion and a second.
I move that we approve the schedule of workshop for April 12th.
I'll second it.
Okay.
We have a workshop every month anyway, right?
We don't have, yeah. Okay. Any further discussion?
What day you want?
That is the second Thursday of the month, because the person who was doing it was unable to come at our regular first Thursday meeting. Okay. Yeah, we can move. Can we move all the workshops to that day?
Okay. 5 p.m. Start at 5
p.m.
How many workshops do we have?
What date you got? April 12th.
April 12th.
Can we word the workshop to not necessarily run from this hour to that hour, but I know Heather, you and I talked about this. If you not worded that way, so as soon as one's over, we can start the next one without having to wait till 6 or whatever.
Could I just get clarification? The workshop for the 5th is now being moved to the 12th, and this one's being proposed to be added.
Yes. Is everyone okay with that? Starts at what time? 5 p.m. on the 12th. For everyone at home, we're moving our workshop from the 5th of April to the 12th of April. There'll be 2 workshops. One night. Oh. Wait, hold on. Did you say there's nothing on the 5th already scheduled? Okay. Perfect. There'll only be this one workshop on the 12th. So far. We still have 10 minutes left of this meeting. There is still time for more to be added. Any further discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all. I appreciate that. Up next on our agenda is County Attorney. Do you have any items?
No.
County Administrator?
Yes, I have one item I'd like to ask the board for ratification of a letter that was sent to Governor Rick Scott to veto House Bill 5301, which related to the Medicaid services. I believe everyone is familiar with that. That was sent out last week, and I'd like to ask the board for ratification.
I move that we ratify the letter to
Second.
Governor Scott regarding Medicaid services.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Moving on to discussion items, issues by commissioners. We will start with Commissioner Stewart. Picking up where we left off.
Okay.
Tell me what you like and didn't like, I guess.
Well, I need to study it some more because I don't understand all what you're proposing because it came late and I need a week or 10 days to digest something that intense. But I've agreed that there needs to be a mechanism, and I thought there was in the existing ordinance. Understanding what you said tonight, I better understand that now, and I think we need that so that people can appeal to some level. I'm not sure that it needs to be the staff level. I need to talk about that with them and see what's best. Because I don't want to take anybody's property. I don't want to deny anybody being able to build on their property. I think that's important. If we do that, then we're over-regulating what I think was intended to be a good thing in the wetlands ordinance. So I can work with you there in that. I'm not sure about if it's got to, is that part of it that's got to come, the comp plan's got to be changed, Heather? Is that the part that would need that? The variance?
The 35 to allow...
And it encroaches in that 35 that's got to be changed in the...
Yeah.
Okay, and that's what you tried to do before.
No. Before I try to get rid of the whole wetlands ordinance, which I'd love to do that again, y'all. But I don't think we do. I want to get rid of the whole wetlands ordinance altogether. This is changing the language in the comp plan to allow, the only thing that needs to change, I think, is to allow a variance to be issued in that 35-foot zone. Right? Everything else I want to do is kind of already in there.
Right.
No, I mean, you would also have to, right now, variances, development within any of the buffers is limited to true takings. And if you want to go beyond a taking analysis to the reasonable use thing that you discussed earlier, that latitude would also have to be granted.
Because just bear with me one second.
They hear what you said. It had to be granted in the comp plan. Okay.
But the taking issue, let's just explain this to me in a simple term. If you wanted to build a 2,000 square foot house and you would encroach on the wetlands by whatever, but you could build a 1,500 square foot house and you wouldn't encroach on it, the county can tell you can only build 1,500 square foot and it's not considered a taking. Is that correct? I don't like that.
I agree. I don't have a problem with that. Okay. And we need to change the comp plan language to now. But explain to me what level you were trying to get that. You sound like you want staff to be able to approve the encroachment in that 35 foot.
No. Okay. There's two buffer zones.
40 foot you said staff, 35 foot come to the commission.
Yep, here's a wetland, here's 35 foot, and this out here is 40 foot. Staff has the grant variance in that 40 foot. Okay. If they want to get any closer than 35 foot to the wetland, we're not saying you can destroy the wetland, but if you want it closer than 35 feet, it's got to come before the board. That would streamline a lot of these things.
Randy, you said you have my vote to send it back to Tallahassee. I don't want any part of it, so I'll vote with you if you bring it forward to get rid of it.
Well, getting rid of it's not going to pass. So.
Well, you got 2 votes.
Well, 2 doesn't equal 3, though. Getting rid of it, I don't think is going to pass, and I accept that. But this is one of the things I have the most grief with is making your property unusable.
And this is can be a fair compromise. I just need some time.
Okay.
Just give me that, and I think we can probably meet in the middle here somewhere. I think that's a fair compromise that you have here.
Alan, you have any grief with it? Thoughts? I just don't want to waste staff time.
No, I understand.
Resources.
I too was frustrated with the short turnaround on the item, and I know that could happen sometimes. So
that's my fault.
As it comes forward, I'd be willing to listen to it and talk about it. There's some of the things that I probably I don't want to do anything that's going to hurt our wetlands.
This has nothing to do with touching the wetlands. This is simply variances in the buffer. And only if that's the only way you can do what you want to do, you know what I mean? If you can move your house somewhere else, then you're going to have to move your house somewhere else. You can't just put it in the buffer zone because you want to be next to that pond or that spring. Right. You have to have a compelling reason for it. Right. That's what I'm saying.
Now, can you bring this back at a future meeting?
Absolutely.
I mean, give us time to look it over and work with staff and maybe tweak it a little bit and come back. Okay. I mean, I don't
want to waste anybody's time, though.
No, I think I can.
The votes aren't there, but I'm not going to waste time bringing it back.
And not having, I mean, again, this came late, so when I was reviewing it, it's been very quick. There's been a lot of public. I had 15 emails today, which I think were mainly reactions to the concept of changing. I don't think everybody was fully aware of what was being changed. There was just an immediate reaction to a change being discussed and that being bad. So, for me, I like to reach out to experts on this issue.
Let's y'all look at it in the next discussion item at the board meeting, the end. You know, not bring it back up again. You know, I've seen that happen in the past, bring stuff over and over again. I don't want to waste
Just hammer it out. Get it.
Next discussion, y'all read it and we'll see.
Good idea.
Jerry?
Good idea.
Ms. Orange? I'm going to assume you don't.
Well,
I shouldn't assume you don't like the idea.
Well, I guess when I first saw this, my reaction was that, well, our comp plan won't allow this. So I wish this had gone by the attorney because I don't think we would have even seen this item in this form. So I hope everybody who's bringing items is running them by the attorney first.
Well, we did talk about this, and you're right. The form would have been, which my motion was to direct staff to revise the comp plan. So that was my motion, and this is similar to the septic thing we're working on right now too. It's in the comp plan. The comp plan has to be changed, and we're paralleling an ordinance along with it to accomplish what we want to accomplish. But I'm not proposing to throw the whole comp plan language out totally, which is what I proposed before and still would love to do. But this rather just modifies it a little bit to allow these variances, to allow citizens to even be able to apply for these variances, not necessarily be granted them, but just to be able to apply for them.
Yeah. The only other thing, that question that came into my mind when I read this is, how many times is somebody really in this situation of they can't do what they want to do, even with the possibility of going into the outer buffer, you know, that they've just got to go into that last 35 feet. And you gave an example, but, you know, I'm concerned. Right now we have staff who's kind of overburdened. I see a lot of higher priorities than going through the whole comp plan amendment and rewriting an ordinance for something that maybe occurs once every how many years. I mean, I don't think this is a frequent problem.
Every wetland variance that remember that one on Wakulla River by TNT Alley came to us not too long ago. Okay.
I remember the right.
Okay, they had
a teeny tiny lot.
Right. They were out. They were further than 35 feet from the buffer zone, though. Okay. If what I want to do passed, they would have went to the planning department just like you do for a setback variance, requested a variance, and they would have been done. They wouldn't have had to go to the TRC, Planning Commission, Board of County Commissioners to request a simple variance that was, you know, may have been 10 or I don't know what their variance was, but anyway, it wasn't within that 35-foot buffer. That's one example of what would have changed, for example. Another example of what would have changed is that commercial building I told you about. It wouldn't be L-shaped to jog around that 40-foot buffer. They could have shown that this is the park, and this is exactly what happened. Here's the front setback of the landscape. Here's the parking I got to have. This is the closest I can get the building to the road away from the wetland. He could have been granted a variance in-house because to not grant it would, you know, deny him not complete use, but...
And I'm sure there are obviously a few cases, I guess, when this has occurred. I just don't think it's a very frequent problem to warrant being
a priority for staff at this time. I really want to see us move forward on the Crawfordville Town Plan. So that's just my thinking.
We just lost last year a lawsuit over the wetlands, $750,000 because of the wetlands. We were sued because of our idea in, that's not the same issue then?
No.
Okay, well,
I just, Lynn, with all due respect, excuse me, Randy, I hear what you're saying, but to those, let's say there's 3 or 4 or 5, probably not that many a year we'd see, but whoever that is, that's important to them. I mean, that's money, and in some cases it's maybe a home that somebody wants to build. So I guess I respectfully disagree that it's not important. I understand that the staff is
I'm just talking about priorities.
But I know they're capable of getting all this done, so you know it needs to be done.
I'd like to point out there's probably a lot magnitudes of order people that just haven't bothered with it because they don't want to go through the hassle. That's how rebate programs succeed, because a lot of people just say, I don't want to mess with that, filing that rebate in or whatever. That's not worth the hassle. Well, these people don't want to go through the hassle of getting the variance. They just say, the heck with it. You know, I won't build my house, or I'll make it smaller. Well, I don't think that's right. I think they should be able to go, well, at least request a variance.
Let me digest all of it. I think we can, and I agree. I think it's a very good idea. Let's come back and discuss it, and then put that on your discussion item so we don't forget it. And I think we can get there.
So to be clear, you're not asking staff to do anything at this point in time, correct?
No.
All right, thank you.
I'll be meeting with you.
And I'll draft.
We're going to have a priority schedule up coming out of planning. And we're going to ask somebody to fit it.
Are there any further discussion items for you tonight?
I'll get later, but I wanted to check, speaking of things, the accessory use thing and the marine uses on vacant lots. I'll just check on the stats of those later. We don't need to go through it now. I just want people to know I haven't forgotten about it.
I want to encourage people again, if I announced in our last meeting, volunteer income tax assistance is available at the library. Your tax day's coming up. If you need to get your taxes done and you want some help, I believe it's Thursdays. If not, you can call the local library. They'll give you information.
And
Saturdays for free volunteer income tax assistance to help get your taxes done for free. Commissioner Moore, anything to talk about tonight?
not really, but I was at a meeting with the county administrator and some of his departments this week, and it's my compliment to the administrator and the departments. It was so exciting to be sitting in that meeting and watching the cooperation between the departments and how well they were working together. It's just it's really refreshing if you hadn't had the chance to see that. It's really good.
Commissioner Arts, did you have any further comments for the evening?
Yeah, a couple.
Okay.
At our budget workshop, it was a little bit, we talked about the court decision concerning the 3% for the retirement, and even though it probably still has a ways to go with appeals, it was pretty eye-opening to me to think that we might have to pay back that money to county employees. So depending on how it goes. So I just wanted to ask the question of whether we needed to be starting some kind of a fund where that's held in reserve.
I think we ought to take it out of the governor's pay. He don't take any pay, so
I don't know if we're going to have to pay it back. I mean, the state's got the money. They would probably not
Oh,
pay it
okay,
back.
then I misunderstood what was
it's not
said.
for sure. I don't know for sure, but it wouldn't make sense that the county would have to pay back the employee for the money that the state took. So,
Okay, then I misunderstood.
but if we get that information, we'll certainly have to look into that. That is a concern. Yes.
Okay.
As soon as we know something, that's when we will.
Okay.
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 You raised a good issue, though, because coming out of that meeting last week, I just want to reiterate, we're not in a shortfall for this fiscal year. Our budget's doing quite well. We're running under budget. We're doing pretty effective with our numbers this year. David, do you want to touch on that?
In fact, current year to date, we're running at $2.3 million above on a cash basis above where we were last year. We're sitting financially sound. We're on budget. We're on task. We're on revenues and expenses.
I saw the paper's headline, and I was like, that said budget shortfall, and I was like, no budget shortfall.
No budget shortfall.
2.3
Forward to a good, clean audit report.
Yes, sir. We're looking forward to a
2.3
good
million.
audit.
What about our reserve? Where are we? Does that include the reserves?
That includes reserves, yes, sir.
And what part of the 2.3 million is the reserves that
It varies based on fund, and I'll have to give that to you.
Commissioner Arndt, you had additional items. I just wanted to touch on that one real quick.
That's fine. I don't need to share them. No, that's fine. Well, one item, just as an update, Cleve and I met with the homeowners at the farm at their annual meeting, or they had a meeting that had a really good turnout, and they took a vote, and most of the people were not in support of what we had earlier been asked to approve, so they aren't planning on, they're going to let that issue drop. There was some interest maybe in looking at stop signs at a few places as an alternative, at some intersections as an alternative to the traffic calming. But anyway, I was glad to see that issue resolved. And it was helpful when we showed them the data, actually, because they weren't very much over the speed limit for the most part. And at some point, we may want to look at whether, I think you had suggested this, Randy, or Mike, whether we needed to bump it up more than 5 miles per hour over. But so that was some weeks ago, and I'm sorry I forgot to fill you in.
Thank you for the update.
Also, Old Shell Point Road paving has been finished. Thank you, Public Works, Cleve and Brent.
Yes. Well done. Looks nice.
Goodness, that's going to be nice. It'd be interesting to check your traffic on that.
He's putting traffic counters out this week, right? As soon as Cleve gets from work.
That's a great exit for the county.
I remember back in the good old days when we paved a major road, and the parents always used to joke that the catchphrase for thank you was, what took you so long? So
I did ask him that this morning.
Took you so long, please.
But we had a number of homeowners. Was it Old Bethel Road? What was the one that?
It was on Old Shell Point.
Stop signs are up, by the way.
Okay.
I assume everybody got that memo on the stop signs.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Y'all enjoy your evening. Thank you.